I'm just recording this for people who can't be with us this evening. So the focus of today's or this evening's webinar is to talk about students who might be wanting to apply for a degree in medicine or in a medicine adjacent course. So I'm also going to I'm going to talk mainly about medicine, but I'm going to talk briefly about dentistry and veterinary science as well, because they are very, very similar in terms of the application process. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Piercy. I'm the Associate Director of LaSWAP, and I'm also the UCAS Coordinator for Acklam Burley School. So if your child is based at Acklam Burley, you will see a fair bit of me in year 12 and in year 13. And I do several of these webinars throughout sixth form on things like this, on student finance, on UCAS, and on other things to do with HE. There is another webinar very similar to this coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and that is for families and students who are interested in applying for Oxford and Cambridge universities, and that will cover the application process in a similar way. So we'll get going. So why am I doing this now? It's really early in year 12, what, 8 weeks in. It feels like our year 12s have only just got there, really. So why so early? I know there are also a few, might be a few year 11 parents and families here tonight as well. That is because there is a lot of preparation expected in these applications. It's probably the most intensive of any HE higher education application there is. Pre-assessments, which are done for most medicine courses, for some dentistry courses, they also take place at the end of year 12. So students have to be ready to sign up for those and be prepared to take those, have done their revision, have done their past papers. Work experience is also, if you think about work experience really as being mandatory for these courses, there are some differences in the work experience requirements expected for medicine, dentistry, and veterinary, but work experience is expected for all of those. And the applications need to be really careful and really considered. The personal statements need to be written in a particular way. They need to include particular things. So overall, it is quite an intense application, quite a lot of work for students. And if they are unsure, if you're unsure about whether you want to apply for medicine or not, then starting to prep now will let you know whether you are, whether that is the right career for you. And starting and deciding not to is obviously much, much better than trying to play catch up at the end of year 12, when it's often impossible to start an application on time. So, a few key facts then, just to set off. The application deadline for medicine, dentistry, and veterinary is the 15th of October of year 13. So, it's just passed for our current year 13s, just before half term. The standard UCAS deadline, so for all other courses that aren't these courses or Oxford and Cambridge courses, the deadline for all those is January of the year after. So for our current year 13s, it's January the 25th, 2024. For your children, if they're in year 12, it will be January 2025. So the deadline for these courses is significantly earlier than other UCAS courses. That's the other reason that students need to be preparing early in year 12, because by the time they come back from the summer break into year 13, the deadline is 6 weeks away. It's really, really close. There is a pre-assessment called a UCAT that is required by nearly every medical school and by some dentistry schools. Registration for that opens at the end of year 12, and students have to register. They have to go to a UCAT centre to sit that assessment, and the best slots, the good slots, book up early. Also, if students want to go away over summer, or they go away for a significant proportion of the summer, there might only be certain dates they can do for the UCAT. So they need to get on and book that early on. Interviews are to be expected. Again, if you're applying for a medicine or adjacent course, expect to have an interview. It is very, very rare that students are not interviewed for these courses. Work experience, I've already said, think of it as mandatory. It's got to be reflected in that personal statement. And a final point that is really important to emphasize at this stage, this really early stage, is that students need to be prepared to move anywhere in the UK for their medical school. There aren't that many medical schools. There are even fewer dentistry and veterinary schools. And most of them are not in London. Most of them are spread out through the rest of the UK. So if students are narrowing down and they really want to stay in London, they may find that their options are very, very limited. So they need to be prepared to move really realistically. So this document here that it's linked in this PowerPoint. I'm going to just show you this document for a sec. This is a really important document. It is available. It's in this PowerPoint, which I can share with you. It will be on the LaSWAP website as well. But where have we gone? There we go. There it is. This is the entry requirements for all UK medical schools. It's published every year by the Medical School Council. And it's got lots of useful information at the beginning. But the bit I want to show you that you'll need to come back to as your child is applying is it's got a section for each medical school in the UK. It tells you what the application ratio is like. It tells you what the requirements are, the entry requirements. It tells you how they use the personal statement. It tells you about the interview. So it really breaks down for each different medical school exactly what you need. So this is a really, really key document for anyone who is considering medical school. There is also one for dentistry and veterinary, which I'll show you later on as well. So just coming back to our PowerPoint. So first section then, I just want to talk about how competitive medical school is, because that's often the first question I get asked, how likely am I to get in to medical school? So this chart is from 2022, so it's pretty up to date. And it just shows the number of applicants over the last, sort of 6 years, 5 years, compared to the number of spaces at medical school. And one thing that you will, I hope, notice there is that there are a lot more applicants than there are spaces. Unfortunately, the number of spaces has not risen in line with the number of applicants. That's for lots of different reasons. Lots of it to do with university funding and space available at the universities. But a key thing to remember is there are now 6,000 more applicants for medicine than there were 5 years ago. So it's a 29% increase from 2017. The reason this also includes, this 27,000 people who apply also include, and this is why I'm telling you this really, just over 5,000 people who are reapplying for medical school. So if they didn't get in for some reason when they first applied, you can apply again. And those 5,000 people who are reapplying have arguably a bit of an advantage because often they've done their UCAT more than once. They've maybe got quite a lot of work experience, or they've gone away and had a gap year and they've had a bit of a break and they've gone and done various things in that gap year. If you are thinking of applying for medical school, you don't have to go straight after sixth form. You can go and do some work experience or go traveling or whatever. What you can't do is apply for a deferred place. So with some courses, you can apply in year 13, get your place, take a break, and then have that place guaranteed. You can't really do that with medicine. You've got to apply the year before you go. They don't really defer places. So if you try and you don't get in, don't be disheartened. Quite a significant proportion of people don't, as I say, like 5,000 out of 27,000, and they give it another shot. What subjects do you need? So the majority, nearly all medical schools have some kind of requirements. So they have like a basic requirement. If you don't meet the requirements, there is no point in applying. Because it will just be a straight rejection. As you see there, like, many, many more places, applicants than they have places. They won't entertain people who don't have what they need. So as you can see there is one, actually one university, Newcastle Medical School, they have no set subject requirements. You can apply with any subjects. Experience tells me they still favor people who have biology and chemistry and similar related subjects. But as you can see there from that breakdown, most medical schools do require biology and chemistry, but some have slightly different sort of requirements there. Make sure that you're applying for the school that fits the courses that you are doing, or if you're currently in year 11, the ones that you are intending to do. What grades do you need? So essentially you need 3As. That's the way to look at this. There are now 3 medical schools that have lower requirements. So that's Kent and Medway, Hull York, and the University of Buckingham. They are AAA, AAB, ABB, so they are slightly lower. Cambridge, unsurprisingly, has the highest grade requirements. It says A star, A star, A on the graph. It's actually 3A stars now. Um, but really, if you think of it as needing 3As, that's what you need for medical school. It's very, very similar for dentistry, very, very similar for veterinary. For those of you who are studying for A levels or you're thinking about studying for A levels, just very, very briefly to say that most medical schools don't consider a fourth A level. So if you are currently in year 11 and you're trying to decide whether you want to do 3 or 4, there's no real benefit to doing 4. If you're in year 12 and you're currently doing 4, then Medical Projects, who are one of the charities that I got most of my information from, they advise that you continue with that fourth if you're going to get A stars in everything, basically. But if you're not, it's much, much better to have 3As in 3A levels than it is to have like A, B, A. And it's even it's even better than that to have the A star, AA. So it's better to focus on 3 and do really well than try and spread yourself out across 4. And that is backed up by the medical schools themselves. One thing to remember is that most medical schools now look at GCSEs. So all of them except 3 look at GCSEs. Oddly, Cambridge don't, Imperial don't, and Newcastle don't. The rest have some kind of consideration of GCSEs. So they look at it in one or two ways. They either say you must have a 6 in maths, sixes in science, and a 6 in English, or they use something called a scoring process. So when they look at your application, they assign 10 points to your personal statement, 10 points to your reference, 50 points to your UCAT, 10 points to your GCSE results or whatever, and they balance it across your application. But make sure that you look when you are putting your application in to make sure that you do have the requirements at GCSE as well as at A level, because sometimes it can take you by surprise. So thinking about the actual application process, then that's all the background stuff, like what do you need to get, what do you need to be studying, all that. So the actual application process itself. The application goes through UCAS, just like any other university application in the UK, except it has that earlier deadline, which we've already talked about. In previous years, so actually including this year, including 2023, there have been 2 admissions tests for medical schools. There's been one called a UCAT and one called a BMAT. The UCAT was done by nearly everyone. There are only 7 universities that use the BMAT. And because of that, from 2024 entry, so from next year, there is no longer a BMAT. They're getting rid of it. It's too expensive to run, essentially, if you if you're interested. So it is assumed that the 7 unis who currently use it will probably switch to the UCAT instead, but they are still confirming that. I would assume that they are going to. You sit your UCAT in the summer between year 12 and year 13. So you book it towards the end of year 12, you do your past papers and you practice and you sit it in August or around that August, September time. And by the time you put in your application on the 15th of October, you know your UCAT result, and that is sent to your universities. 2 universities, Buckingham, Central Lancashire, they don't use the UCAT. They have no admissions test required. All the other universities do require an admissions test. So again, assume that you're going to need to do the UCAT. You to sit your UCAT, you go to a centre. I think there's one like down on Holborn somewhere. I think that's the closest one to us. And it's done online. There are a couple of different sections to it. I'm not going to talk about it loads today because we're so early in the application process. But there's loads of information online. There's loads of past papers, loads of practice papers online. You do have to pay for your UCAT. It's about £70. If you receive bursary, then you can get a refund on that. So again, as I've said, you do your application form, which we know. You have to do your admissions test, your UCAT, which we've just talked about. The final stage of the process for most students is the interview. And again, as I said, just assume that you're going to have an interview because you probably will. So interviews start in November of year 13. So the deadline is October the 15th. Interviews start around the end of November, approximately, sometimes as late as December, and they can go all the way through to the end of March, even up to the first week of April in year 13. So if you are in January of year 13 and you've not yet had a reply from your medical schools, don't worry, they are probably still deciding. You can be called for an interview at short notice, so you need to be ready. You're usually expected to travel to an interview in person. Over COVID, most of them were online. Lots of them have gone back into real life now. And the reason for this is because the interviews are usually rather than being just a normal panel interview, like a job interview, where you sit in front of a couple of lecturers and they talk to you. Most interviews for medical schools are what are called MMIs, where you move between a sort of set of stations that have a short time limit, and then you'll be asked. One might be one where you sit and answer some questions on paper or on a computer. One might be a role play. One might be another kind of task. If you're applying for dentistry, you'll have like dexterity assessments where you have to physically do something, because obviously that's a big part of being a dentist. So interviews are not usually just, sitting behind a desk and someone firing questions at you. They're usually more interactive than that. Again, there's loads of examples online, and there are some really, really good organizations such as PopMed. The link to that is on the PowerPoint later, who do mock versions of this for you, usually for no cost or for very, very low cost. PopMed do a brilliant conference day. It costs about 20 quid, and you go and you get the whole day. They look at your personal statement for you. They do MMIs with you. There are some really, really good programs out there to support students. A key aspect of your medicine, dentistry, veterinary application then is your work experience. I can't emphasize how important the role of work experience is in these applications. It's not just medicine adjacent courses that need work experience. Any vocational courses really look for work experience. So if you're applying for something like education, they would also look for work experience there. Similarly, if you want to apply for an allied health course that's not medicine, so something like radiography or midwifery, they will ask for and expect work experience as well. So the premise behind it isn't to make it awkward, even though getting work experience can be awkward. The whole premise behind it is that you are going into this having made an informed choice about your career. They want to know that you understand what it actually is like to work in a hospital or to be a doctor, and that you're not getting your ideas about this from, TV or from kind of, you know, sources that are not realistic. Work experience is the best thing you can do to give you a genuine insight into what, doctors and associated professionals do all day. They want to know you've got a deep understanding of a doctor's role. So the two types, oops, sorry, the two types of work experience that they really want to see are one, what you might think of as a traditional type, so directly observing healthcare. That is going and shadowing a GP, shadowing a doctor, shadowing in A&E, and just directly observing what doctors and medical professionals are doing. That is one really valid form of work experience. The other really valid form of work experience, and one that's often overlooked, is working with people in a caring capacity. And as you can see, again, these stats are from medical projects, again, from 2022. The research they did of medical schools said that the main things they were looking for, and in terms of skills, were caring and team working. So not an in-depth understanding of, what a GP does all day, but instead an understanding of the fact that the role of a doctor is a social role as well. Same with a vet, same with a dentist, and that you have a huge sharing, it's a social um, aspect to your career. So if you are struggling to get work experience, clinical work experience, and that is often the case, um, it is hard to get observational clinical work experience, then consider other kinds of work experience. Consider any other work experience in any aspect of the NHS, doing anything. Consider work experience in a care home, like something that shows that you understand that caring social aspect to the job. They will all give you really good skills that you can write about in your work experience. And if you find that if you find that aspect really, really awful, you really don't enjoy it, then it might make you consider your whether or not this is the right career for you in the long term too. So what lots of people ask again is, if there are so many applicants and there's not that many places, then how do I get an advantage? Assume that everyone who's applying is going to get 3 A's. Everyone's going to do some work experience. Like, what can you do to make your application stand out? So the first one is high predicted grades. Make sure that you're talking to your teachers about your grades through year 12. Let your teachers know, your biology, chemistry teachers in particular, know as soon as possible that you are a potential medic, and that so they know that you're aiming for A and A star grades, and do whatever you can to make sure that you're reaching that standard. Um, 6 medical schools lower their entry requirements for students with an EPQ, and 3 more suggest that it's beneficial. Now, that's only 9 out of 39. It's not lots of them, but if you're doing an EPQ, it can be beneficial for you. Just something to bear in mind. And a high quality personal statement that reflects back on your work experience. Only 2 out of the 39 universities don't consider a work experience. Sorry, don't consider a personal statement. All the others score them or use them. So it is important that your personal statement is good. We give lots of support at all the LaSWAP schools on how to write personal statements, lots of examples, and I also run webinars and support uh, sessions for medics in at the beginning of summer in year 12. I also review personal statements for medics from any LaSWAP school. So a quick word then on dentistry and veterinary. They're quite similar, really, but just to explain what some of the differences are. So the process is entirely the same. The deadline's the same. You usually need to do a UCAT if you're a dentistry applicant. Veterinary doesn't usually have an admissions test. They sometimes have their own. It's not really a test, but the university will have like a kind of online like a log of your work experience, or like an extra bit to the application they want you to fill in where they specifically talk about work experience. And the interview style is really similar as well. So everything I've said already similarly applies. The entry requirements are almost identical. Um, and as I've already said, dentistry MMIs require physical dexterity tests. The main thing to bear in mind if you are a veterinary school applicant is that you need even more work experience. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Some veterinary schools, including the RVC, which is the primary London veterinary school, require 140 hours of work experience, half of which needs to be clinical, so in an actual veterinary practice. The other half, the other 70 hours, can be another kind of work experience. So that can be in husbandry, so working on a city farm or a farm. It can be in kennels, in dog groomers, in catteries, charities, anything else where you're working with animals, basically. If you can get farm husbandry experience, that is really well looked upon, because a lot of veterinary work is farm based. But it needs to be, you need to have both aspects. Um, Dental schools like work experience, but they're actually quite flexible regarding the type because it's really, really hard, or it can be really hard to get like observational work experience in a dentist. Lots of places don't offer it. Uh, if you can get it, great. But if not, then same as with medicine, anything in the NHS, anything in a caring capacity, they will consider. There are also a few really good online courses that you can do that count as some dentistry work experience that are run by the University of Sheffield. And again, closer to the time, later in the year, I will obviously circulate links for things like that. They are all free as well. So a couple other key documents then. Again, I'm just going to show you these very, very briefly. They're the same as the medical school one. Uh, and this is the veterinary one. Again, information at the beginning, nice picture of a dog. And then it's got, just like the medicine one, a section for each vet school, which tells you a little bit about the course. It tells you the application stats. It tells you the work experience requirements. It tells you any tests that you have to do beforehand. And it tells you what the offers are. So it's just a really, really useful document. And the last one, again, same, is for dental school. Again, but university by university, all the requirements that you need. So one thing that again a lot of people that sort of concerns a lot of people get students get really worried about during year 12 is what if my grades aren't high enough? Like 3As is a big ask. Um, and these are difficult subjects. So if you are working at BBB or ABB, and you're struggling, quite frankly, to get to that A star A grade, does that mean that you can't apply for medicine at all? Well, it doesn't. It's quite a small number, but there are a small number of what are called gateway or foundation courses, depending on the university. So instead of being a 5 year course like a standard medicine degree, these are 6 years, they take 1 year more. They do have limited numbers, and some of them have sort of extra criteria. So either you have to live in a certain area, or you've got to be the first person in your family to go to university, or you've got to go to a certain type of school, something like that. And some of them accept BTECs as well, although most of them still require chemistry and biology A levels. So the entry requirements for these really, really vary. Some of them have no specific or strict grade entry requirements, so they take it on a case by case basis. Some of them are only 1 grade lower or 2 grades lower than the standard medicine entry. But all of them do have slightly lower grades. So if it gets to kind of March perhaps of year 12 and your grades aren't quite looking strong enough to go straight into a medicine course, then maybe have a look at these gateway and foundation ones instead. You can't apply for both a standard medicine course and a gateway one. You've got you if you qualify, if you've got grades that are high enough for the standard course, you also can't apply for the gateway one. You've got to go for the standard one. So just as like a few examples here, this is just 4 that I picked out. There are 16 undergraduate medicine gateway courses in total. There are a few more. If you look up the full list, there's a few more than 16, but some of them are for postgrads only. But this is just 4 examples that I pulled out. So Aberdeen, like all the Scottish ones, I believe, are only open to Scottish students. Bristol grades are BBC. They limit their applications to certain schools, but all the SWAP schools are eligible and included for the Bristol Gateway course. King's College London, their grades required are ABB. You have to go to a state school. They also give your application more weighting if you have done their summer school or if you're the first person in your family to go to university. And Plymouth is an example of one that varies. They look at it on a case-by-case basis. I won't click on this link here, but this link here will take you to the full list of foundation courses and what all their entry requirements are for 2014. But one thing to note is that there is only one gateway course based in London, which is that King's College one. So just to reflect back to my point earlier, that you do have to be prepared to move for medicine. Gateway also exists for veterinary and dentistry. So 4 dental schools offer a gateway year, which are Bristol, Kings, Leeds, and Liverpool. Bristol is open to all the LaSWAP students, and the others have, just like the medicine ones, different bits of contextual entry. Again, there's a full list there. And 3 vet schools offer a gateway year, so RVC, Bristol, and Nottingham. RVC is super competitive though. I think they've got something like 50 places, I think, compared to 180 on the standard course. It's very, very high work experience requirements. It is, if you are a veterinary student and you're thinking of RVC, that is one to really look at early in year 12 to make sure that you meet the criteria. So what support is available throughout this year? So there is in-school support with statements and applications that will come from your child's base school primarily, but I also take something of an overview of early entry applications across the SWAP. There is work experience advice and signposting available from the careers contact or the HE contact at each of your base schools. So depending on where your child is based, that might be Hillary, it might be Madeline, it might be Rihanna, it might be Glenn. If you're not sure who your HE or careers person is at your base school, the best person to contact is your head of year, and they will let you know. I think it's also in the LaSWAP Parents Handbook. Their names are in the LaSWAP Parents Handbook. The LaSWAP Aspirational Team is starting in the next couple of weeks. This is a team that students all across the SWAP can sign up to. It is initially used to signpost things like workshops, university mentoring schemes, university summer schools, things like that students can get involved in. And then later in the year, there is a series of webinars on different aspects of early entry and personal statement support. There are also loads of free or really cheap like webinars, conferences, and workshops available, like from lots of places, from universities themselves. Other places, good places to look at are Medic Portal and PopMed in particular. PopMed is great. I talked about it before. It's the Imperial. It's run by the Imperial Muslim Medic Society. You absolutely do not have to be Muslim to join and to take part. And they operate some amazing courses for extremely cheap. UCAT, there are loads of past papers and sample question exams around there, and there are MMI guides and mock interviews around. What I would say, please, is please beware of expensive online work experience courses. Please beware of courses, residential courses that promise to, get you into medical school and cost £3,000. I'm not exaggerating; they can be that much. A lot of those are run for profit. They are there's they I'm not saying they're no good. They might be, but they are run with the intention of generating profit. They are not like something like PopMed, which is a group of medical students who are trying to help other students get into medicine. These are big companies that are making loads of money off the back of students. If you come across something that is making big promises and is asking you for a lot of money, if you would like to run it past me, you can email me, and I am more than happy to check it over for you, because there are there are just some things out there that are not very ethical. Last thing then today, just a little bit on how to prepare. So it won't surprise you that I suggest looking for work experience early in the year, and you can't have too much of it. Get as much of it as you can in as many settings as possible. Do plenty of research. Look at entry requirements because they vary. like uni by uni, shortlist courses, visit universities as soon as you can get to open days. We will take, so LaSWAP takes all of our year 12 students to something called UCAS Discovery in March. That is at the Excel over at the Excel Center. And that is a huge exhibition of dozens and dozens of universities who all come to talk about the courses that they've got available. And it will, they will have people there who can talk about medicine. Think seriously about a backup course. So this is for two reasons. Number one, because medicine is and veterinary and dentistry are so competitive that you, even if you do a really good application, you do your UCAT, you do well, you do a good interview, you just might not get in because because it's so competitive. Um, it's good to have a backup. You can also, when you complete your UCAS application, you can apply for up to 5 courses on UCAS, but only 4 of those can be medicine, veterinary, or dental. The fifth one, if you choose a fifth one, has to be something else. You can choose to leave it blank, but what most people do is use that as a backup course and apply for something like, usually something like biomed, bioscience, or another allied health course that gives them that bit of backup just in case they don't get into medicine and they still want to go to uni that year. One question for students is to seriously consider why you want to do this. So, really read up as much as you can and consider the negatives of medicine as well as the positives. It is not an easy pathway. Dentistry, veterinary medicine are all really, really hard work. Forever. And all of them have like real perks of the job, but all of them have real downsides as well. And so it is definitely worth looking at and balancing why you want to do this. It is not a good idea to want to be a vet because you like fluffy animals, because most of your time being a vet, you'll be dealing with animals that are in distress. It's not a great idea to go into medicine just because you want to make loads of money, because you won't for quite a while. And there are, other careers that are easier that you can make more money in. So you really do weigh up the pros and cons. Use your online support, go to as many online workshops, conferences, practice sessions, mentoring things as you can. Like really take advantage of everything, of all the support that's out there, and book your UCAT early and look at past papers as soon as you can. So if you are currently in year 11, I don't know how many year 11s we have here, but thinking about your timeline in year 11, it's really about thinking about which courses you're going to choose in year 12. In year 12, where most of us are now, gaining work experience, volunteering, booking your UCAT in June, sitting your UCAT and doing as much kind of prep as you can. And then in year 13, finalizing your statement, submitting, completing your interviews, and going through. So these are just some useful links. This one I already put earlier in the PowerPoint as well. Med schools have some really good resources about studying medicine in general. Medic Portal, again, have good resources about studying medicine in general, and also links to past papers for UCAT and things like that. That's the PopMed website there. And at the bottom, I've just put Uni Taster Days. That's not specific to medicine. It's a website that collates sort of events from universities all over the country. So workshops and open days and all other kinds of stuff. It's got some really good filters on it. So you can filter by the type of event you want to look at. And they really do poll pretty much everything that anybody's doing. So it's a really good idea to sign up to Uni Taster Days, sign up for medicine alerts, and then anything that comes out will go sort of straight into your inbox. Okay, so that is it from me in terms of the presentation today. I'm just going to pop my email address in the chat because I didn't put it on the end of the PowerPoint, which I meant to. Apologies. So my email address is just in the chat there if anybody wants to get in touch with me to chat about anything that I've talked about today. I'm just going to have a couple of minutes as well. If anyone has any questions, again, if you want to just put them in the chat, I will answer as well as I can. If you've got any questions that are really specific to your circumstances or to you or to your child, then feel free to email me and ask privately. But if there's anything that you want to ask generally, then please do now. I'll just give it a couple of minutes. If you don't have any questions, thank you very much. You are please enjoy your evening. And if you would like these slides, you can email me. They will also be on the LaSWAP website in the next couple of days, and the recording of this will be on the LaSWAP YouTube channel, which is again linked to on the website if you'd like to if you'd like to watch me again. But thank you very much, everyone, for coming along this evening, and please have a nice evening if you're leaving now. Hi. Oh, just a quick question in the chat. It's just when you can only apply to 4 medicine courses. Does that also apply to courses such as paramedic science? No, it doesn't. So it's a sort of funny thing. So with you, if for everything else on UCAS, you can apply for up to 5 courses on your application, except medicine, dentistry, and veterinary, where you can apply for 4, and any course at Oxford or Cambridge, you can only apply for 1 course at Oxford University or Cambridge University. That's because of the interview system. But no, you can only apply for 4. If you apply for any other allied healthcare course, so paramedic science, radiography, midwifery, anything like that, you can apply for 5. It's only medicine, dentistry, and veterinary that you can only apply for the 4. Great. I hope that's answered everybody's questions. Thank you very much. Bye.